Welcome everyone to this week in Svelte, and it's a new unusual early version this time, but we are still here. We weren't here last week, so today let's jump right into it because we have a lot of changelog to go over, which is fun. I think it's the best part. But today we also have some other niceties, some other Q&A, quick fact, and stuff like that. We don't have a community showcase, which is always a bit sad. Like, guys, we want to see your projects, so feel free to reach out because I'm always happy when there are some new project that shows up. So yep, let's go over the changelog, and we can start from this changelog from 13 days ago. So it's a lot. So there are some interesting bits, like for example, you cannot validation that you cannot use form inside a form, simpler hydration, legacy component API. Okay, this is it's to make it more visible, and I think so. It's our duty to actually like announce this to the world because this is actually something that most people didn't know exist. But basically, you can actually, if you are using an old Svelte 4 library, what you can do is you can set the legacy.component API compiler option to make it work. Like this will add, so if in your Svelte config, you can do legacy component API to true, and you can actually get to see these here in the breaking changes, because let's say that you are importing a class and you want to mount it like this. With Svelte 5, you can't do new app anymore. If you want, you can actually let me see if there is an example of these, but basically you can have exactly compiler option, legacy component API true, and if you set these, this will add a bit of runtime overhead because basically Svelte will wrap the class for you. But this is it's uh, if you can, you should be either use the mount, which is the new way of doing things, or you can do the create class component. So you can use create class component from Svelte so that like you can basically use the same API. You can pass the component up and the target, and you get back the component. So if you can, like if you have control over this class, you should be doing this. But sometimes maybe you are using some library that it's using this API under the hood. So if you happen to be in this situation, you can use the compiler option legacy component API true in your svelte config.js, so that Svelte will add a bit of a overhead on this, but it's fine. Like it's to be able to use your library even back again. I think the work that maintainers did for the back compatibility is very wonderful. So let's go again over. Always create wrapper div for Svelte component with CSS custom properties. Svelte events package. Okay, this is also an interesting bit. So this is mainly for like basically if you are running an action, for example, instead of using add event listener, so element add event listener, you can actually import the on function. I think there's an example here. Basically, you can import the on function, and then you can pass the element, the type, and the handler, and eventually the option. And what this does, so you can do something like this. So you can do on, and then you can do on this element, click, and you pass the listener. And you can also like like this on function also return a function to clean that up. But the reason why this is important, so either in an action or in an effect and stuff like that, is because this function basically makes sure that your listener gets inserted into the like the listener, like the event handler orchestration that Svelte does under the hood. This is not really important. Like if you use ad event listener, it's not really a problem. It only becomes a problem for certain type of event where the order matters. So you can use it, and it's a nice thing. But so this is the preferred way. So if you are inside your Svelte component, it's preferred that you use the on event listener, and it's also nicer because like you can just pass a function and you don't have to store that function separately to then clean it up. So it's nicer, and it also helps Svelte coordinate all the events. Update reactive set when deleting initial values, simpler string normalization, always assign text node value. Yeah, these are some fixes. Defer task without creating effects. This is something like they are also working a lot on making the framework faster in every possible way. So, for example, there were some effects that were just created to eliminate things, to clean up stuff. And I think with this PR they changed that. The touch inert effects, all things that are very, very that makes the framework faster. So yeah. Insert bound type input counter is resumed on iteration. This is something very, very interesting because basically there is a great example here. So before, this is what was happening. If the content was hydrating, so this was server rendered, and before hydration kicks in, you start writing in the input, all that you were writing was basically lost. And after, look at this. Boom. Whenever hydration kicks in, is actually take the actual value of the input as the new source of truth, which is super fun. If you ever had, I had this problem testing because Playwright, obviously, this doesn't really matter that much because user will never jump right into your input to write as soon as the website open. So generally, iteration will happen before this. But we had some problem with Playwright because Playwright, being a machine, our overlord machine, was immediately starting to write into the input. And when hydration kicks in, that input was cleared out. But now it doesn't anymore. So very cool. Better render type. Render is the function that you now need to use if you want to render your Svelte component to HTML. So this is what SvelteKit is using to server-side render your component, but you can actually use it for whatever you want. For example, I was using the Svelte 4 API equivalent before to print an OG image for SvelteLab, for example. So basically, you render that to HTML, and then you pass that to the SVG. There is this library. I can't remember the name of the library, but yeah. You pass the HTML, and basically you get back the SVG image. And now this has a better typing. Robustify migration script, always fun to see something like this, because the migration, we will soon, hopefully, everybody will run the migration script. Address event delegation duplication behavior, remove create root references, clear map set before triggering inspect callback. Oh, this is a breaking change. So the last time we talked, I showed you an example with effect.active, and now it's being replaced by effect.tracking. So if you are using effect.active in your code, make sure to change it to effect.tracking, or it will stop working on next 155. Better types for on, function invocation, rewrite state unsafe mutation message, correctly process empty lines in messages, handle is attribute on element with spread, adjust model declaration to work around language tool bugs. Let me see. Ensure element size bindings don't unsubscribe multiple times from the resize observer. When removing defaults, component function context for nested content. Improve runtime performance of capturing reactive signals. I was looking at this the other day, and it's fascinating because, this has significant impact on our single benchmark. And if you look at the change, is so minimal. Like they literally just added one single change to this, but this actually improved a lot in the performance. They also added, this is also very interesting because they added, obviously, it's not published, but they added a benchmark to the CI. So again, this really shows how important performance is for Svelte 5, because now every time someone tries to contribute to Svelte, there's also a CI that keeps track of how impactful that change is on the performance of Svelte. Very interesting. So I think that's it. Let's jump over to SvelteKit that had some. That actually has a lot of publishing. Wow. So SvelteKit, decode asset URL in dev when reading them. Yeah. It's always funny. Fix decode assets URL in dev when reading them, but for real this time. This is very, very funny. No, fix read non-encoded data URI. Always decode asset URL. Determine local Svelte version more reliability. Cool. Update package description. I wanted to look at this the other day because I want to see how they updated the package description. Yeah, SvelteKit is the fastest way. Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. What was I want to see the conversation around. It's not mentioned. Oh, interesting. Since SvelteKit is not mentioned in the package name description or tags, the kit package cannot be searched in npm with the SvelteKit search keyword. Very interesting. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if there are some other changes. So adapter node, which our friend Karim is actually working a lot on, add the unit suffix to the environment variable. Adapter Cloudflare, validate that node root JSON is present to avoid overwriting it. Interesting. Language tool, account for added code in the range of inlay hint, adjust ambient model snipping logic, speed up regex, speed up regex, ESLint plugin Svelte. Cool. So this is very interesting. Basically, Svelte valid compile. This is a ESLint Svelte rule, which basically tries to compile your component, and if you have some compiler error, some warning, it will show those warning and those errors in your editor, basically. And this is not actually super known, but inside your svelte.config.js, you can pass an onWarn function that will be called whenever there is a warning, so that you can basically mute your warnings inside from the Svelte compiler. It's very interesting that now the plugin actually uses that. Very interesting. improve valid prop name in Kit pages to use Svelte config.js data from the parser. No export load in Svelte module in Kit pages. Yeah. So they are basically doing a bunch of improvement to actually use the Svelte config, which is cool. Update Svelte ESLint parser to use Svelte feature runes by default, to use verbatim model syntax. Yeah. They're doing a lot of work on the ESLint parser, which is very cool because this means that we are reaching a point where now Svelte 5 is almost ready, and so all the tools around are starting to adapt to it. Yeah. There were a lot of releases. Add text about Svelte add. This is also something very interesting and something that maintainers are actually working on. So if you don't know about it, basically you can use this package, which is called Svelte. Where it is? Okay. Yeah, npx svelte add, which is basically an adder. So by running this command, you can actually install, like, this is basically a package that will take care of all the steps to install certain things. So for example, if you want to install vtest later, if you want to install playwright, if you want to install I can't remember what adders they use, but it's very cool because you can quickly add Tailwind, for example, and they will take care of creating all the files and stuff like that. So let's see some comment. Captain Codeman says Next 156 has some really important fixes to derived that seems to be missing from the changelog. Yeah, possibly because the changelog is auto-generated, but yeah, cool to know. I don't know if people know your site well, they might start quick. YouTube is always wiping out my search text when it finished booting up, and it drives me up to the wall. Yeah, I mean, yes. It also depends how fast you can download the bundle. This, I think, it was related to the hydration bug. If you have a very small bundle, it will take seconds to download. Obviously, it also depends on your internet connectivity. With very slow internet connectivity, the bundle of a very minimal website can take up to 40 seconds to load. So yeah, definitely a good thing. I was wondering what Svelte language tool is, but it seems to be used by the VS Code extension. Svelte language tools is the repository that contains all the language tools. So basically, there is the Svelte extension, VS Code extension itself, but it also contains the Svelte language server, which is basically used by the Svelte extensions under the hood. But you can also use the language server, for example, in your NeoVim, if you're using Vim, by the way. And so you run the language server separately and you connect to it with Lua, I guess. I am constantly in the process of adding the same language server to SvelteLab, and I always get sidetracked, but one day will come. So yeah, Svelte language server language tools is basically all the collection of the tools related to the language. So there is also, for example, Svelte to TSX, which is actually a misleading name because this tool is basically what it's used to convert your Svelte component to a TypeScript file so that we can use the TypeScript language server to type check your component. So the moment you're using TypeScript inside Svelte, what happens under the hood is that your Svelte component gets converted into a TypeScript file so that we can check that everything is correct, basically, which is super cool. Like, it's very fascinating. And I don't suggest you to watch at the output of that, that file, because obviously it's only to be able, like, it's really there just to be to be used by the machines, like the TypeScript language server. So it's really unreadable. It's a way to revisit questions during the initial project creation. Not really like revisit questions, but Svelte add basically allow you to add stuff to your project, even if your project is already started. So obviously, like if you started with JavaScript and then you want to add TypeScript, you cannot rerun create pm create svelte again, because it might wipe out part of your configuration and stuff like that. And so with Svelte add, you can quickly add stuff to your Svelte project. So that's it for the changelog. Now we want to talk about, there is a very quick fact, which is that there is a new documentation, a new appendix in the SvelteKit documentation, because debugging is something that is very important in every application, and it's particularly important for applications like SvelteKit that are full stack. So you can run code on the server, run code on the client, and stuff like that. Now, most of the time, I mean, there's a personal opinion, so don't take these as like a suggestion, but I think most of the time using console logs is perfectly fine. But there are some times where using console log is not enough, and a usual way to debug is using the breakpoints. To do so, you can use this guide. I will actually post this in the chat if you want to take a look. This was written by our loved Enrico. Yeah, basically it guides you on how to debug your application in VS Code or in general with other editors, and also how to debug Node.js application using a browser-based debugger, which is very cool because debugging inside Chrome is very good. Like the debugging experience of the console, developer console of Chrome is very, very good. And sometimes it would be cool to have the same for Node, and actually you can. So if you run the inspect flag when starting the Vite server, you can actually open a website in a new tab. You go to Chrome inspect, and then you can attach that debugger to the Node server, which is super, super interesting. So yeah, there are some, for example, you can use the built-in terminal in VS Code. So you can set up breakpoint, you open the JavaScript debug terminal, and then you run your process normally, and then you should trigger the breakpoint. You can launch the debug pane, and for other editors, there is a guide. I think Theo, which is another Svelte ambassador, is also planning to add specific information for NeoVim. So if you are a NeoVim user, by the way, you can actually debug in the same way. Yeah. Okay. So I'll leave you with this link, and I have to be clear. Like I wanted to show you how to debug, but I got to my desktop very late, so I don't know if it will work. So I will not show you this, but we will do a bit of live coding with the next question, because so this was a small announcement. So first thing first, let's see some comment. This is really interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a demonstration of breakpoint logging before, and I've definitely have a time when I would have found that useful. Yeah, very interesting. And Sergio is actually asking, which node should I use for static hosting on server? What do you mean specifically by which node, which version of node, or it is possible to add the keyword debugger in script tag. It should. I don't know if that will trigger. It should trigger a debug even in Node.js, but I mean the debugger keyword only only work when the console is open, for example. So, but it should be possible on the client. Is definitely possible on the server. It should be still possible, but I think you still want a debugger instance, like you want to launch your application in debug mode for it to work. So, and Sergio clarified the question. Node static. Yes, what you're asking for is an adapter. So SvelteKit can basically be deployed to a bunch of applications, to a bunch of providers. So there are some if you go to the adapter page here, there are some built-in one, for example, Cloudflare, Cloudflare Workers, Netlify, adapter node for node servers, adapter static for static site generation, and adapter Vercel. All of these are maintained by the core team. There are also community-provided adapters. For example, there is a ban adapter that I know of. And so what you want, like what you were asking, is you want a static hosting. So personally, I would go with adapter static. In theory, you can also use adapter node and then pre-render the whole application. But if it's really static, I would still go with adapter static, and I would also pre-render the whole application, so that you basically get back a series of JavaScript, CSS, and HTML file that you can just host on a CDN, and you get your application. Yep. And yeah, auto usually work fine for regular development, but if you know, like adapter auto, what it does is it tries to understand on which platform you are deploying, and it take the correct adapter for you. But if you know that you want a static pre-generated website, go for adapter static. Very good question, by the way. So let's switch to the live coding, which, I mean, it would be very minimal, but I want to show you something. So there is a breaking change. I think it's, yeah, exactly. If you go and see the event handlers, before in Svelte 4, you had on, click, and instead now you have on click, like this. This has a very good advantage, the fact that they are just properties. You can spread them, which is very good for buttons, for example, because you don't have to create all sort of like manually creating all the events that you want to listen on. But this has a bit of a problem. Event modifier. Since there's no colon anymore, and I mean, really, there are not events anymore. Basically, they had to remove these. Very handy, if I had to say, but to be fair, I actually almost never use this. But there were before the ability to have event modifier. So you could do on click once, prevent default, and then pass a function. And this was basically like making sure that this handler is only called once, and the event would have been prevented. The default would have been prevented. This is not possible anymore in Svelte 5. And so really what you should do is, but the very simplest thing is just write the thing inside the handler. I think that's the easiest thing to do. So let's say that we have a link, a href is equal, https://svelte.dev/chat. So this is a link to our Discord, and please follow it because it's very interesting. So before, basically, you could do something like this. So and actually, let's switch back to non-rune mode so that I can show you. So before, you could do something like prevent default, right? So by doing this, what this does is that so console log clicked. By doing this, join the best Discord add-on. So when you click here, it will prevent the default. So as you can see, it's not navigating to the Discord, and is logging this thing. Now, again, let's say that we are now in Svelte 5. You cannot use this anymore. In theory, you can also use it. You will get this warning because these are actually deprecated. So you should use onClick. So we can move to onClick like this. But obviously, this is not a valuable attribute name. So let's remove prevent default. But now there is a problem because I'm not preventing the default anymore. So if I click here, it's actually navigating to our Discord. So yeah, let's close it. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's close it. So we want to prevent the default. The easiest thing to do, really, is just this, like e.prevent default. Like this is basically what Svelte was doing for you under the hood. There's not much more to add, and then you can just. Oh, it's also not working for some reason. I don't know why. Oh, that's weird. Did I say something wrong? What? Let me see. Why it's not working? I am missing something, guys. Sorry. E.prevent default. What? I'm confused. Let me try to refresh. Let's debug it. Yeah. I'm very, very confused by this. Let me console log e. Oh, I think there was an error. No? I am very confused here. E.prevent default. There should be one. Yeah, default prevented true. I don't know what's happening. Okay, let's ignore this for some reason. But yeah. Yeah, no, I'm doing it normally with Svelte. Like this is, I am actually doing prevent default. Just anchor and onClick. Oh, so okay, by doing these, okay, possibly. So let's see. Maybe this is a bug. Bind these. Let's do let and we do bind these to and then we do $effect. And we do dot add event listener click e dot prevent default console.log click. Did we found a bug? It seems like so. This I guess this could be part of onClick. Let me see. This could be part of the event delegation stuff. So yeah, we might found a bug, which is fine. We can just report it. Contribution, guys. So let me remove the effect. Now it doesn't work anymore. Yep. Okay. It's fine. I guess let's try if we import on from svelte/events and we return on click. Let's see. This should error out too, like should still work because no, okay, this works. Okay, it's clearly a bug of some kind. The element is prevent default is more useful on a button in a form. Yes, but I mean this should work, as you can see. If we add the event this way, it works. So I think there is a bug here, and I will actually report this and possibly fix it. So yeah, if we found a bug, it's fine, because this should work. Okay, but what I was trying to say is that you can actually just do this, or if you want, you can actually create some utility yourself, which is what they are suggesting us to do. So if you look at this, basically what you can do is you can create some functions that will prevent the default. So in this case, prevent default takes a function as input and return a function where the default is prevented, and then call your function. So yeah, it's just doing this, and then you can wrap everything inside once, and you can do something like this, and like you get the same behavior of once. Oh, maybe like Theo is saying that maybe there is already a bug open. I cannot click on that, but we can actually. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like Frank Wise saying boilerplating prevent default, no thanks. I agree. Like at the end of the day, you can just do e.prevent default inside the handler. It's not a problem. This is just something that, like, if you want the niceties of be able to do prevent default like this, if you do it a lot, maybe it's good to have an utility function. So let's check the let's go on github.com/svelte and let's search for this input 97714 event delegation tools. Yeah. It might be this one. Yeah, probably. I will take a deeper look later. But yeah, this was the main question. So I'm happy that we actually found a bug. But I wanted to showcase this because I think not a lot of people knows about it. Not a lot of people knows that you can actually quite simply write your utility function if you really need it. But at the end of the day, you can really just write it inside the handler, and it's fine anyway. So yeah, thank you guys for showing up. And yeah, writing as on click actually stopped the propagation, because I think the on::click event are not delegated. So that's why, the delegation is probably the problem. I think those utility functions might be useful to have as standard. I think they discussed about this and realized that at the end of the day, like, they are not really needed. That's the point. Like, if you really, really, really find yourself writing e.prevent default over and over, then maybe it's fine for you to have, because that function will increase the bundle of Svelte and stuff like that. It's another piece that needs to be. Do directive function still work in Svelte 5? Use function? Yes, they absolutely do. This is also some interesting bit. Because usually an action works like this. So let's say function log click, for example. It takes a node as input and possibly some extra thing. So for example, I don't know, sentence. And then basically what you do is you can do whatever you want. So node add event listener, for example. Click, and then you console.log sentence, right? And then if you want, from an action, you can return an object with an update method that will be called by Svelte whenever the thing that you pass to the action changes. So new sentence. And you can just do, for example, maybe, I mean, you can do something like sentence equal new sentence, and that should work too. In this case, you probably need, so const listener is equal to this. You need to store this somewhere. So listener. And then you also want a destroy that will node.remove event listener click listener. So this is usually how you write an action, and now you can use it like this. Use log click, and let's say that instead of this we have an input bind value like this, and then we have value here which start as an empty string. So this is it's a stupid action, by the way, but if I write something like this, and then I click, it will log undefined for some reason. Oh, because I'm not passing it to the thing. So if I do value, this should work. So if I now do something and I click, I am logging something. If I delete and I write Paolo and I click, I'm logging Paolo. And this continues to work. There is a slight difference for something, which is if you're using an object. So let's say that I have this object with name Paolo, right? And I'm passing this, and I say that bind value is equal value.Paolo. So I'm value.name. And let's say that I'm passing the whole object here. So I want to log sentence.name, and I want to do sentence equal new sentence. This will have a problem, because if I click, it shows Paolo. If I do Paolo Ricciuti, for example, if I click again, oh no, it's actually working. I mean, there is an edge case, which I think Captain Codeman actually found about. But basically, like, given that in Svelte 5 we have fine-grained reactivity, if you pass the whole object and the whole object is not changing, but only the property is changing, this update will not rerun. So actually, I think a good measure for actions is just use an effect, which is super cool because you can create an effect inside the action. So you can basically remove the need for update and destroy, and you just do all of your thing inside here. So inside the effect, you can actually do sentence is equal to maybe we can log these. Okay, let value is equal to sentence.name. I log the value, and then I do value is equal to sentence.name. And by doing this should still work anyway. I click, yeah, it still work because you can create effects whenever you want. And obviously, in theory, like here, I should also clean up the event listener probably, or no, maybe like I should still clean up that inside its own destroy. But to coordinate the value here, it's much better to use an effect. That was the only thing that I wanted to say. We can see. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, luckily it was nothing important. Yeah, it was just a button click. So the important bit was here. Thankful. Okay, guys. As usual, 15 minutes has passed by. For me, it always like fly through these 15 minutes. Thank for being in the chat with me. Thank for being active. And I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed today, this week in Svelte. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.